I was asked for my opinion of BaconCountry's most recent video before, and definitely after my most recent vid, you know, the overly sarcastic one about poke checking, which of course is the main debate in the community right now. I'll say this, his main point in the video is arguing for more leeway, which I can agree with. If someone wants to argue that 5% of poke checks that are being called could go without being called and instead just be a missed play, I'd be cool with that. I mean, I've had the discussion with people on Twitter, Twitch, the YouTube comments, wherever else. I'd be fine with that, although with my cynical nature, I am admittedly afraid that they'd go too far, as they have in the past with post-beta tweaks. Throughout his video, you'll see examples, you're seeing them now, of poke checks that even he agrees should be penalties, although weirdly enough, over the first minute and 5 seconds or so, he shows clips as, you know, mistimed poke checks, but he's also, you know, saying like, oh, try to find, and here, you know what, let's get the audio going. He says right here, listen in.
Let's start from the start though. This is what everybody's saying when you first bring up poke checks right away. Anybody who's supporting the current poke checks, they're saying, give it a few games, you will adapt to it, and the poke spammers are getting punished. It's great. It's great. Finally punishing those poke spammers. Well, I just want you to notice every single clip here. I want you to find one poke spam in here, and I show a good 35, maybe 50 poke checking penalties.
Now, what I want you to do is find an example of how many of these poke checks that he shows in the first minute and 5 to minute to 10 seconds that are not examples of poke spamming, but are examples of mistimed poke checks, which again, it's weird because later on in the video, he even says, you know, yeah, the majority of these should be penalties. Mixed messages a little bit. And again, I feel like that's where a lot of people are confusing things. My main takeaway from his video and from all this feedback is some people, especially via Twitter polls, are confusing spamming and mistimed poke checks. Not spamming doesn't necessarily mean that you aren't going to take penalties. And again, Bacon's video here is full of clips, absolutely full of them, that are mistimed rather than examples of spamming, to which again, he admits that they should still be penalties on the vast majority of calls. Now, you can debate over what is the best way to correct people and to teach them over proper poke checking, and some would certainly argue right now that it's way too harsh, Bacon included in this video. The argument of people are just going to leave rather than putting small effort, the small amount of effort to learn, that might not be wrong. On the flip side, though, you could argue that people leave games all the time rather than learn if the difficulty scale is too much. Look at a Rocket League, for example. Some people are going to say, you know what, no, I'm not going to learn how to fly, I'm just going to not play. Other things that caught my eye throughout the video. There is a clip here at about 5:50, right around this time. He starts to argue over, poke checks. Basically, when you're back skating, you're looking right down at somebody and you still miss the puck, although there are examples of that as well that I'll try to go back and find. But then he cuts into this clip, and it's an example of a reach where, again, this isn't new. A penalty on this play isn't new. It's a mistimed poke check. Now, I believe that's Dan Hamhuis, if he wasn't holding the puck on the backhand, you take that poke check and still don't get the puck and take the penalty, that I would agree is a problem. Say what you want, because he mentions here like, oh, I tapped the shin guard. It's like, yeah, well, you tapped the shin guard because you mistimed the poke check. That's why. That's a penalty. You can reach for the puck. You just have to time it the right way. You also have to factor in a player's handedness, really, because there are other clips, other examples in his video where he's trying to reach with a right-handed player when the player's off to his right, and that should be a penalty. But again, he admits that it should be a penalty, so I'm very confused in a way, because he shows these examples as, it's kind of crazy that this is a penalty, but then later on he says, yeah, they should be penalties. It's kind of weird. 7:18. Right around there was another example of not spamming, but something still being mistimed. It's this clip right here, and it's another example of somebody back skating. That's mistimed. Now again, if you are a right-handed player, you don't have to reach all the way across your body to poke check it. You might have gotten the puck. But flat out, this penalty right here is just another example of it being mistimed, right? I mean, clearly. Now, if you want to argue that instead of it being a penalty, that he just misses the play, doesn't take the trip, and ends up falling behind the play, that I'm in favor of. But again, like that clip right there, it's going to be a penalty. It's just going to be a penalty. I don't think there's any debate over that. Right around here was another example. I think it's after this save. He mentions dragging the puck back equals a penalty, which, of course, it always did. As far as the option of pulling backhand and it being a penalty, I know I timestamped this correctly. I don't know what the break is in between him saying that and the clip. Oh, look, a stickler from the back. Who knew that was possible? I guess another perfect example would be going back to that clip at 5:50 where, hey, someone pulls backhand and it's a penalty. Yeah, but you know what else? If they're on the backhand and you can get the checking contact, you're probably going to knock them off the puck. And it's part of the whole situation here where people need to, again, and I'm not saying this to Bacon specifically, I'm just saying this in general. People need to kind of rewire their brain for what works and what doesn't, because for years now, really ever since 2BC embarrassed EA somewhat by the Hercules check, checking hasn't been effective, which is why we've had poke spamming, left bumper, going into the shot block animation to break up the puck. You have to rethink and relearn the game and remember, oh yeah, checking is a possibility. The bump in the back is a possibility, and especially if someone's holding on the backhand like that, if you bump them in the back, they're going to lose the puck. Flat out. So, I don't know. I have 9:55 time-stamped again, and I think it's another example of a reach, which, again, he later goes on to say, hey, that's a penalty, which, it probably should be. And actually, this was the example of kind of defending it. If that's a left-handed player, he may be able to poke around the player and get the puck, but with a right-handed player, you're never going to get that. If someone wants to argue that this play right here shouldn't be a penalty and should just be a missed poke check, which, again, is pretty much Bacon's main argument, I would agree with it. And he mentions around the 10-minute mark that the game's in a great spot because all we're doing right now is arguing over stick checking. And that I completely agree with. And actually, right here is, I think, a perfect example of the stick sweep. It is. This is exactly the clip that I wanted to find as far as when he said pokes from the front are an issue. I think this clip really kind of sums up why it isn't. Or at least this specific clip kind of showcases why. As you can tell, he's holding right bumper and trying to stick sweep. He was doing all right. Like, there was an initial poke check that was fine, but then once Connolly, closes the distance and goes for the windmill, like, yeah, that's going to be a penalty. I kind of don't really know how to approach this because, as I've mentioned so many times, Bacon brings up the fact that, oh, look at these as examples of, and that was actually the other clip I wanted to find right there. Look at these plays as examples of, poke checking penalties being way too common. Yet later on in the video, he says, yeah, but they should probably be penalties. It's like, I get that you're arguing for that little bit of leeway. And like I've mentioned before, I'm down for that. The 5% of these, if we tune it so people just miss the play instead of taking penalties, I'm good with that. It'll speed up games and, the learning curve won't be as difficult. But there are penalties here, this one included, that aren't new to the NHL franchise. These have been in for a while. Something like this, again, where you pull backhand. If you mistime that poke like he did, yeah, and he did. I mean, it was his opponent. That's going to be a pen. It just is. But we now have the tool to body check somebody off of that puck. Or hell, in this situation, in this specific play, you know what you can do that very few people actually do? Board play, especially when he cuts back. Board playing's an option again. I don't know. I don't know. As far as reacting to this video specifically, I don't know how to react to it. So like I said, for the people that wanted to know my opinion, I agree that there should be, or could be, a little bit of leeway, although I'm personally okay with the way this is right now. If people want to argue again that, oh, well, there's going to be 22 penalty minutes a game, yeah, there might be at the starts. That's going to happen, though. I mean, especially, too, you can't say that in the lower tiers of versus mode at the launch of a new game that you're not going to run into players that take a lot of penalties. You can't say that drop-in games wouldn't be complete shit shows if we give that little bit of leeway. They've always been shit shows. So I don't... And again, you combine these clips with him mentioning, oh, well, show me examples of spamming. It's not just spamming, of course. It's mistiming poke checks. So I agree with him, but I disagree with him. This is a perfect example of just don't do that. You've never been allowed to do that. That's a very dumb idea. I agree with Bacon and people who say, hey, a little bit of leeway might not be a bad thing. But just the way the video is kind of structured, that right there as well, that's a common computer penalty. That's not new. As for someone who watches AI versus AI gameplays somewhat frequently within my own franchise modes, that is not a new type of penalty. I don't know. I don't know. So I guess in conclusion, leeway, sure. The way this video is kind of structured, though, I'm not taking shots at Bacon because I'd be cool with, again, that little bit of leeway. I just think the video's somewhat structured kind of awkwardly. I don't know how else to put it, but it is what it is. It is what it is. He got his point across, even if, and look, I know for putting together a video like this, finding the perfect supporting clips all the time can be little bit weird, but and a little bit difficult. But like I said, for the first minute and 5 seconds, for him to be like, oh, find me examples of non-spam, and for all of them to pretty much be examples of mistimed plays that he later goes on to say are good. He's good with them being penalties anyway. I don't know. Bacon, I like what you do, though. I'm glad you're interested in coming back. Hey, at the very least, it's good for the community. Yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to put this video up there because obviously it'd be a hell of a lot easier than typing it out, I suppose, to have the video clips as evidence. So, yeah. Thank you guys for watching. Go check out Bacon's video. Link in the description and the comments if you haven't checked that out. And I look forward to the response to this, I suppose, even though I still don't know. I don't get it. I'd like to see it stay the same, personally, I guess, in conclusion. I'll see you guys next time.